Okay, so our seventh workshop is about moving from outline to your full draft. And this is especially useful, I know, because you do have an essay or an essay draft due this Thursday on the discussion board. So hopefully this will kind of help you move towards getting into draft mode and how you might want to approach writing it. Know that you don't have to follow this exact way. But if you do follow this way, you're really going to end up with a strong essay and hopefully going to find it not too overwhelming to write because you're going to kind of have all the elements put together before you even start the writing process. Okay, so what we'll be covering specifically today, we're going to review your outline and make sure that you covered the basics. We're going to expand your topics into full topic sentences. We're going to talk about how to do that. We're going to add your supporting evidence, including quotes and paraphrases. Then we're going to talk about how you check your writing flow, consistency of ideas, and look for underdeveloped or irrelevant areas that might be showing up in your essay. And then from there, you're going to think about ways that you want to approach writing the essay, possibly taking it by sections instead of starting from beginning to end. And also about how you organize the essay. In other words, you have a problem solution research essay we're talking about here. So do you approach it problem, 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 or do you do problem, solution, problem, solution? So we'll talk about how you identify which way your essay might want to be structured. And then finally, we're going to talk about what to do if you're feeling really stuck, you have some writer's block, where to go. All right, so before we really dive in, just a few things to keep in mind when you're writing that first draft. Number one, try to follow your outline as closely as possible. The more detailed your outline, the easier it's going to be to write that draft. Also, always refer back to the prompt to make sure that you're addressing all the parts that that prompt is asking for. That is a downfall that students, a trap that students tend to fall into, where maybe they address part of the prompt, but they don't answer all of it. Or perhaps they're just not quite answering what the prompt is looking for, and they kind of go off in the wrong direction. So always remember to refer back to that prompt. And then remind yourself that you can add new details if they're relevant. It's okay if it's not showing up in your outline. As you're writing, maybe something, you might be inspired to add something in there. That is totally fine. You want to be flexible with your essay writing. Also, keep that thesis in mind. Your thesis is your roadmap, right? What appears in your thesis is meant to be what your entire essay is about. So it's always a good idea to revisit your thesis statement every once in a while and make sure that it's actually matching with what your essay is about. Also, in the draft phase, you want to focus on ideas and content. You can adjust and add details later, but right now it's about really what is showing up in that essay, not necessarily all those specific little things. Those are the things that you'll add in the revision phase. And do not worry about grammar, punctuation, or spelling. Again, something that you'll worry about in the next drafts as you move forward. Okay. So getting started. Actually, when you sit down to write your first draft, you're going to be really focused on that outline. You're almost going to be using your outline as your draft, right? Think about it that way. And the more detail your outline has, the easier it's going to be to write your draft. So we're going to dive into how to make that a detailed outline that's going to turn into your essay. But at the bare minimum, I would recommend that your outline at least has that thesis statement, your main topics, and then some supporting evidence from quotes and paraphrases from that research that you spent all that time doing. So here's an example of a very basic research essay kind of outline. You want to at least make sure you kind of cover all these things that appear here. You want of course, your introduction that's going to include the background on your topic and that thesis statement. And then you see here it's laid out with that first topic, that's your point A. That would be one of the main points that you're going to be talking about in your essay. And then a few pieces of supporting evidence. And that supporting evidence, again, would be like your research, your observations, or your own personal experiences. So at the bare minimum, you want to really at least have your topics laid out for each body paragraph, a few ideas about what the supporting evidence would be. And then, of course, you'll need a conclusion. And that's where you're going to summarize the main points of your paper and restate your thesis statement, and then make that strong, memorable final statement. Okay, so definitely have this in place before tackling the first draft. But you could take it, to the next level by making sure that you have really kind of dived in a little deeper with what your outline includes. I definitely would have a working thesis, which summarizes the central points of your essay. Remember that your thesis should tell the reader what the essay is going to argue and why. And then I would recommend that each paragraph, you write your full topic sentence, because your topic sentences are really going to tell the reader what's happening in that entire paragraph. You can really think of a topic sentence as a mini thesis statement for each paragraph, right? So a topic sentence should always be connected to the thesis. It should provide a main point, and it should be applying to the entire paragraph. So just like your thesis statement, that topic sentence needs to cover what your whole paragraph is going to be about. And if it's not covering what your whole paragraph is going to be about, you're going to want to revisit that and rewrite it. And then additionally, if you can, you want to make sure that you include your points that you're planning to cover in each paragraph. This can be just like a few words, just so that you know where you're taking that paragraph. What points are you going to be including to prove why your topic sentence is correct? Why what you're arguing in your topic sentence is accurate? Another thing you can also include is something that's referred to as the takeaway. This is basically a way of kind of your goal of what you want your reader to understand after reading that paragraph. This is really useful as a point of reference when you're revising your essay, because you can go back and look at what you wrote in your outline as your takeaway and see if your paragraphs actually accomplish that. So here's an example of what one section of an outline that includes more specific details would include. So you see, the title of this essay is American TV Trends and Stress Levels. Their thesis statement, sociological evidence indicates that people who watch a moderate amount of television per week have lower overall stress levels than those who watch too little or too much TV. So then you see that they've identified their paragraph 1 topic sentence. And if you read their topic sentence, you'll see that it's very clearly connected to their thesis, and it's clearly laying out what that paragraph is about to be about. So they have, since the 1960s, American viewers have incrementally increased their television viewing time. Okay, so we know what that paragraph is going to be about. And they've even established a takeaway. So they want their reader to know the history of TV watching in the United States. And then how are they going to tell their reader this takeaway? They've laid out the points. They have the introduction of the TV as a family source of entertainment, expansion of TV programs offered, current TV watching trends. So you can see how this outline, this is just one section of their outline, is diving deeper now. They're getting more specific about what's going to be appearing in that paragraph, and they're making sure that their topic sentence is connected to their thesis, and they're making sure that their points are proving their topic sentence, okay? So now we can even get more detailed on the outline. If your outline has that thesis statement, those topic sentences, those main points, now it's time to add that supporting evidence, right? You've done all that work on your research. Now let's turn that research into supporting evidence to help prove your essay's argument. So the more supporting detail that you add into your outline, the better off you're going to be when you're writing your draft. This is especially true for research essays, right? Because you're really required to assemble a lot of information from a lot of different places. So it's a lot of detail and information and arguments that you're kind of sifting through. So the more that you can add to your outline, the easier it's going to be to put it into your essay. So your supporting evidence is not just your research, it's also going to be your personal experiences and your observations, right? Again, write those full sentences. Make, you can even write little short stories about your personal experiences. You're almost kind of writing your draft in your outline, right? Pay close attention to where each of those pieces of your supporting evidence belongs. This is your chance to think about where it's going to be the most effective in proving your argument for each paragraph. And then write those sentences, those paraphrases, write those quotes, get them all down, but just make sure that you include the author, title, and page numbers, all those details, so that when it comes to citing your sources, the in-text citations, you're ready to go. You don't have to look back on your sources that you wrote down. You don't have to look back in them because you already have it all ready to go. Okay, so this is an example of what a really detailed outline might look like that includes that supporting evidence. Again, this is that same paragraph that we were just looking at, but now it's getting even deeper, where it's including their supporting details that they want to use to prove each point within one paragraph. So as you can see, I won't read through it all, but you see where they have points, and below that, one of them is the introduction of TV. From there, they have their source, and then they have some points that they've read in their source that they plan to use in their essay. If you look a little further down on that next bullet point, you'll see that they even have a direct quote included. And what they've done here is they have content was streamlined, so everyone in America is watching the same material at the same time. So they're laying out the point, and then below that, they're including the quote that's proving the point, right? So you see how they've done this on each point. They've included points that they've pulled from the sources, and in some cases, they've even pulled out direct quotes, or they're paraphrasing. So you could do something very similar for your particular essay. You're going to be including your personal experience, your observations in your own city. And of course, you're going to be wanting to make sure that you include all your sources. So by doing this, this is another way to ensure that you've included all 5 sources that you're required to use, and that you've made sure that they work where your points are being made. So in other words, you're making sure that each of your sources is going back and proving your topic sentence, right? All right. All right, so now if you have a very thorough and detailed outline like that, then you are really ready to start the actual writing process. So now you're going to be putting together all these sentences that you've put together in your outline into paragraphs. You're going to be reading what you've written and paying attention to whether your writing is flowing naturally. If it's not, then maybe you need to add some transition phrases, maybe add some extra sentences. But it's a good idea to really, as you're writing, read, your paragraphs and make sure that the flow is there. Think about a reader experiencing your essay and whether it's making sense and it's consistent. You might also find that maybe your ideas made sense in your outline, but maybe now it's not so much working with the rest of the essay, or maybe you just need to change the order of your ideas so that it all kind of comes together better. And you might also find that you just have too many ideas, or that some ideas just aren't relevant and they need to be cut. And that is perfectly normal. The outline helps you get organized, but you always have the flexibility to change it as you're writing and you just find it's not working or you're not feeling it. Okay, so when you're actually writing, one thing to remember is to approach your essay not by writing it in chronological order, but by writing it in sections. And really, you should write it in the sections that you feel most confident about. So start with those first. By doing that, that's going to give you some space to figure out what you need for the sections that you are less confident about. So, the ones that you're really feeling, or you feel like you have some really good research on, or some really good experiences you want to include, or you're most excited about, start with those. Because as you write those, you're going to start to be able to kind of fill in the blanks on the other sections. Because your ideas are flowing, you're generating more content, and you're also just going to feel more confident as a writer. And then, of course, tackle that introduction and conclusion last, because it's really hard to know, what you're introducing and concluding until you actually have it. Although you want to make sure you always have that thesis, from the start. Okay, another thing to think about when you're writing is how you're organizing the sections of the essay, right? And in this particular essay, you have 2 or 3 problems that you're identifying, and then you're also presenting solutions to those. Okay, so there's really kind of 2 ways you might approach the organization on an essay like that. And that would be the problem solution, or problem, 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 solution, solution, solution. And the way to maybe decide how you should approach it is if your problems are closely related to each other. If they are, then put them in sequence order. So lay out all those problems, and in here you can see how there's a flow. And then from there, you go into your solutions. So for example, we have first income inequality that can lead to economic and racial housing segregation and an overall high cost of housing. So you can see how there's a flow here. These problems are all connected. So you'll want to present all of them kind of first, and then you're going to move into your solutions. So for example, your solutions might flow like this: reforming taxes so the rich pay their fair share, and abolishing any rental or mortgage practices that resemble a new version of redlining. So you can see how those solutions directly connect to really all the problems. So that makes sense to a reader why you would structure it that way. Now, if you have problems that are not as strongly related, it's going to make more sense to approach it with the problem solution method, right? So for example, you might write about LA's paralyzing traffic, and then you want to write about the high cost of housing, and then you want to write about air pollution. So you would write about each of those problems, and after each problem, you would present that solution to that problem. So this way you are raising the problem and immediately solving it before moving on to the next problem solution. So that's going to make more sense to a reader, because otherwise, if you're presenting several problems and then you're presenting several solutions, it's going to feel not consistent, kind of jumbled together, harder to track. So something to keep in mind. Those are really the 2 ways you're going to want to structure this particular essay. So, something to think about. Okay, on to feeling stuck. So this is probably going to happen. Oh, yes. Question? I'll go ahead and mute. Okay. So you're going to feel stuck at some point writing this essay. It's a long essay. There's a lot of things happening, perfectly acceptable and normal to feel stuck. But if this happens to you, there are some ways to tackle this. First, do not panic. Remember that feeling stuck happens to even the most experienced writers. Take a step away from your writing. This is going to clear your mind. Whenever possible, you really don't want to force the ideas. So if you're really struggling, don't waste your time trying to force it. Walk away, come back later when you've had a chance to kind of clear your mind. Start early with the writing process. As you saw, we had a lot of kind of pre-writing that's happening before you even tackle that draft. So if you allow yourself time to kind of do all that work up front before we even start the writing process, you're going to find it much easier. And talk to family, friends, even your family pet about your essay, right? Sometimes it helps to just talk out ideas with someone, because when you hear yourself say it, or when you talk to someone about it, all of a sudden it's like, oh, that makes sense, or oh, that doesn't really make sense, or oh yeah, that's a great way to present that. So that can help a lot of people to do that kind of strategy. And know that you can always change your ideas before you turn in your final draft. That's okay. That's what I'm here for, or your professor as well. You know, if you really want to change something and you're, you know, panicking and you don't know how to get it done in time, you know, come visit me. We can go through it. We can figure out how to tackle that. And it's okay. And then trust your voice and your ideas. Don't compare yourself with other people and their work. You have something special to say and in your own unique way of saying it. So focus on your own work and don't worry about what everyone else is doing. And finally, talk with your teacher or tutor. We can help you get unstuck, okay? So I think that covers everything. I'm just gonna open it up for any questions. Does anyone have any questions about what we went over today? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pause.